My timer? Great. The other day I went to the store, and I went to the store to go get some soup. And then at the store there's different cars, like red, green, and blue cars. And then I drove home and I saw a bunch of houses, and in the front of those houses there were lawns, and most houses have lawns. Now, I could communicate like this for the rest of my speech, and I could use poor written material that even my 11-year-old sister thought was bad, or I could communicate effectively. In reality, the only reason I presented it in the way that I did was to have you grasp the disconnection that we feel when not being communicated to in a personable, compatible way. Communication, as Sidney Harris puts, a doctor of psychology, is the human connection. It is the key to personal and career success. It's defined in Oxford Dictionary as communication is to successfully convey ideas and feelings to other people. In reality, it's the only reason you, me, or anyone else is here today. It's as Stoa Speech and Debate League puts so well on the first page of their website: to speak boldly, changing the world for Christ. It's because I believe this is true that this gift that we call communication is one of the most important skills to master in our time on this earth, because of the ability it has to change our lives and the lives around us. To better look at this topic of communication, I'd like to ask 3 different questions. First, what is communication? Second, how do we communicate? And finally, why do we communicate? So what, how, and why? First, what is communication? I can tell you what it's not. Communication is not just spouting out a bunch of different information. It's, as Paul J. Harris, a writer of the Chicago Times and a column writer for over 200 newspapers nationwide, says, there's a key difference between the word information and communication that are often used interchangeably. Information means giving out, whereas communication means getting through. Now, my sister often presents a good example of this when she wants to go to the mall. Matthew, can we go to the mall? Matthew, can we go to the mall? Matthew, can we go to the mall? She's not truly communicating, as she's just giving out information. Perhaps a better way would be to say, Matthew, can we go to the mall because I'd love to get a new dress so I can look good while speaking at the next speech tournament, connecting to my emotions. This leads me to believe that communicating stems from the idea of connecting with other human beings. It's as Brené Brown says, connection is the energy created between individuals when they feel valued, seen, and heard. Communication, connection, we all have something that we want to tell the world. It's part of our human nature. To better look at this, the word communication, the etymology of it actually comes from the 2 Latin words, communis and communicare, which literally mean in the English vocabulary, community. Communities have been built upon the idea of communication. Our whole world around us has been based on this idea of connection. Furthermore, communication isn't limited to one means, such as speech, as commonly believed. In reality, if we look back to the definition to convey ideas and feelings, then everything that we do has a meaning, such as verbally speaking, that I'm doing right now, through inflection and tone, or nonverbal, through hand movement and my facial expressions, through art, through colors and shapes and objects, something that I believe our Creator did very well with the universe that we're in. And it can even communicate through our actions and what we spend our time doing. Simply, every action from the day that we are born to the day that we die communicates something to those surrounding us. Therefore, the way in which we communicate is probably very important, which leads me to my second point. How do we communicate? Now, truthfully, somebody could have absolutely nothing to talk about and still captivate his audience, something that I believe politicians know how to do very well. For example, I can make it look like I'm coming to a very profound point, but in reality I have nothing. And now I'm going to do this with my right hand and do this with my left hand to grab your attention and also show you I do know my right hand from my left hand, and I'm going to show some startling statistics. The majority is usually larger than the minority. And I'm going to conclude by saying even more nothing. Now, I may have been over-exaggerating, but I hope you realize the point I was trying to get across. How we present matters a lot. Now, this may have been aimed directly at verbal communication, but it can be cross-applied to any way that we communicate. In the same way, when we act obnoxious or rude or egocentric, it deplenishes the message that we're trying to impart to our audience. And we're not truly and effectively communicating what we like to say. Now, furthermore, as I've seen working through my job and working with other students and even with my friends, to overcome this barrier, our message has to come with a genuine passion and purpose. Otherwise, in reality, why even say it? And I believe through this passion, this purpose that so many of our great leaders have had, it will flow into our actions in every aspect of our life. Now, the message that we are trying to impart may be important, which leads me to my third point. Why do we communicate? Now, truthfully, there's a long list of why people communicate. To interrupt, to abuse, to lift up, to motivate, to inform. The list goes on and on and on. In reality, there's so many different ways why we communicate. Therefore, the more important question is, why do you communicate? Now, that's not a question I can answer for you. For Rosa Parks, when she decided to not change her seat, she stood for equality. When Hitler spoke the words, to disarm a nation, to conquer a nation, you must first disarm its citizens. He stood for destruction and evil. When Van Gogh painted the painting Starry Night, he stood for beauty and inspiration. And most important to me, when Mary Magdalene spoke the words, "He has risen," she stood for the truth and the hope that Jesus Christ is our Savior. Our words have meaning. They have an impact. Therefore, I hope the message, what you're trying to communicate through your actions, through your words, through your art, has meaning, has a purpose, and a truth to it, because it has an impact. It will have an effect on those around us. Because like I said in the beginning, it's a connection that we form with others. It is said in Proverbs, the words from our lips satisfy our stomach. Today, we looked at the overwhelming topic of communication. And we saw how many ways it impacts our life. In reality, it impacts every single aspect of our life. We looked at it from 3 different questions. First, what is communication? Second, how do we communicate, and why do we communicate? Hopefully, you've realized the vast majority of what's out there for communication. I would urge you to go and research this more so that you too can advance your communication skills. Now, I could continue to ramble on like I was doing at the very beginning of my speech, but perhaps that wouldn't be the most effective way to communicate. So instead, I'd like you to leave this quote with you from Rollo Mays, a psychologist, who says, when given the opportunity to communicate, take it. Because when the time comes and you've honed your skills of emotions, of verbal speech, of clarity, you are able to impact the world. Thank you very much.